Voice on the pandemic warns Trump could have a setback.
Sometimes when you're 5 to 8 days in, you're going to have a reversal. His physicians know a reversal meaning going in the wrong direction and get into trouble.
Trump's doctors have not revealed information from a scan of his lungs. He's on a steroid, which experts say could mask some dangerous symptoms and suppress the immune system. And there are questions about the president's mental state following his bizarre display on the Truman balcony and his tweet yesterday telling Americans, "Don't be afraid of COVID."
If they don't put the brakes on, what's the next tweet going to be? What's the next decision that's going to come out of this?
One Trump aide says the staging on the balcony was designed to show strength to the American people and America's allies. But with all the questions being raised about whether President Trump is healthy enough to lead, another key question arises tonight. If he gets too sick to govern, what happens next?
There is a real question of whether or not, if real existing responsible leadership prevailed, whether or not the 25th Amendment would be invoked to turn over the powers of the presidency to Vice President Mike Pence.
The first step would be to determine whether President Trump is incapacitated. According to the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, Trump could make that determination himself.
He can notify Congress, the House and Senate, that he is going to be incapacitated because he'll be sedated on a ventilator. And until he says so, that the powers of his office would be transferred to Mike Pence, who would serve as acting president until the president's health improved.
But what if the president is so sick and incoherent that he can't make the determination himself to hand over power? The 25th Amendment says Pence and the cabinet can essentially take it from him, or a supermajority of Congress could. Pence has so far tested negative for coronavirus, and his doctor says he's in good health. But COVID has infiltrated the White House, and President Trump has been in close contact with Pence. If Pence gets the virus and becomes incapacitated, next in line to be acting president would be the Trump team's political arch-rival, Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
I don't think they'd let it happen. They'd find a way around it, possibly the Secretary of State, someone in the Republican line, either the elective line in the Senate or the cabinet line would take over. It's just untenable. And Nancy Pelosi would recognize that as well.
If Pelosi is bypassed or doesn't want the job, the rules call for the presidency to go to the Senate's president pro tempore, who at the moment is 87-year-old Republican Chuck Grassley. But political experts say getting to that point is very unlikely. Another key question tonight, what about the election? What if Trump or Biden have to drop out because of the virus? Well, then their parties would have to select a new nominee and really scramble to do that. Pretty dicey proposition this late in the game.
July 2019.
Months into one of the worst pandemics the world's ever known, there's still no vaccine to protect people. Hard figures are impossible to come by, but the World Health Organization estimates that 150 million people have died. That's approximately 2% of the global population. For industrial countries, the death rate's a bit lower, but in many low and middle-income countries, the death rate's much higher. As many as 30% of the seriously ill have died. In the U.S., there have been an estimated 82 million severe cases and 15 million deaths. At least 5 million Clade X deaths happened because adequate medical care wasn't available. No doubt, millions of others will have died prematurely from heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and the like. The U.S., along with the rest of the world, is in its worst economic depression in history. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 90%. The GDP down 50%, and unemployment is running at 20%. Unemployment would be higher if not for the dramatic shrinkage of the available workforce due to death and disability. U.S. healthcare and health insurance systems, as we knew them, have collapsed. Health insurance companies ran out of capital and couldn't pay their bills, leaving hospitals without operating funds. In addition, most medical supplies are unavailable. Half the healthcare workforce has died, become disabled, or quit. The remaining healthcare facilities can't cope with all the patients, and consequently, death rates are soaring, both for Claydax patients and for everyone else. It was only by nationalizing the healthcare system that basic medical care is still available. The government now pays for, controls, and rations all medical care. The U.S. is in a constitutional crisis. The president remains in critical condition, and while the vice president is out of intensive care, he remains unable to assume his constitutional duties. Therefore, the Speaker of the House is the acting president. Continuity of government is a major concern. 1/3 of the U.S. Congress is dead or incapacitated, as are 2 members of the Supreme Court and senior members of the administration. Government and local levels has been brought to a near halt. After the failure of the first vaccine that seemed so promising 15 months ago,